Southern slave owners raping their slaves was such a common occurrence that today, your average black American in the United States is about 15 to 20% white. This is not the end result of centuries of consensual interracial relationships. This is due almost entirely to the prevalence of white Southern slave owners raping the women they owned as their property. It was so common that the United States actually had a law dictating a newborn status as slave or free in these situations. Now, at the time, and even kind of now, everything about a baby is passed down through the father. The name, the inheritance, the custody, it all went through the dad. But in one case, it did not, and that's the child's status as slave or free. In that case, it went to the child's mother. If the child was born to a slave woman, the child was also a slave. And Southern slave owners took advantage of this because their slaves had a baby, they just had a new slave, even if it was their own kid. The state of Virginia, this is just one state, mind you, kept records of their mixed race slaves. And every year in the 1800s, there were tens of thousands of mixed race slaves in the state of Virginia slavery system. And these were not the result of people outside of slavery. They all resulted from white slave owners raping the black women they had as property. They also have records of the slave women themselves giving testimonies, articles talking about how they were treated and often used as sex slaves by the slave masters. Mixed race slave women were sold at a premium to be house slaves because they were viewed as more docile than darker skinned slaves, and also viewed as less offensive to look upon by white guests who came and who they served dinner to. This also gave the slave owner easier access to them to sexually assault them even further. This went on so long that eventually a lot of these slaves were 1/8 or 1/16 black. You couldn't even tell they were black by looking at them. And abolitionist movements would use pictures of these white slaves in their anti-slavery campaigns because they knew white people would identify more with these light-skinned slaves than they would with dark-skinned slaves. So yeah, there's a lot of documentation on this. It's not controversial. It's not up for debate. It's 100% true. And it's an important historical fact that we do need to discuss because Southern slave owners were even bigger monsters than we give them credit for. And it's important we don't forget that.